right? Switch. Hi, guys. I just got to boss Joey Soloway around for like 1 second. Hi.
Hi.
Sit over there.
Yeah, move.
Thanks for being here.
It's a cozy setup.
It is.
Are the people on the chairs mad that they're not the people on the couches?
What did you do to
What's
get on the
the-
couches?
Early.
Ah,
Very nice, the couches.
looking very comfortable, very handsome. Yeah. Well, here we are with Joey Soloway. My boss, my mentor, my friend. Hi.
Hi, brother.
Yeah. I have some questions
All right,
for you.
let's do it.
You want to do some questions?
Let's just do this
Just do this.
for an hour. We have a very loving relationship for being coworkers.
We do.
Yep.
We do. We get it.
We get it.
Yep.
Yep. Just chill. Just have fun. There's Jenny. She's nodding. She's like, we get it. Also known as Aunt Bryna is in the audience.
Hi, Jenny.
Yay!
We talked a lot about Jenny's butt this year. Yeah. It's a good butt. It's a good butt. I watched it go up and down some stairs quite a bit.
You were mesmerized.
I was. We were in the desert. It was hypnotic.
What else can you do but watch butt?
That's right. Jenny butt. Bryna butt.
Bryna butt.
So yeah, we do have a lot in common. I think I wanted to start by asking you how this whole thing started, because I think it started with you and Faith, your sister.
Which whole thing? You mean my
Your whole
genderqueer sassy clown look?
That's right. This whole thing. This whole getup.
What exactly do you mean?
I guess the entertainment biz,
Right.
the biz of entertaining people with your stories
Yeah.
and your magic.
My Mahika.
Casting spells.
Casting
spells.
Well, I think that would be my sister Faith's responsibility. She and I, hung out on the floor of our living room, entertaining each other, listening to Jesus Christ Superstar, also Hair and Fiddler on the Roof, and putting on records, dancing, singing. My sister's an amazing pianist, and so we would make up songs and just create little entertaining musicals to make each other laugh. And in our neighborhood in South Commons in Chicago, we had a musical theater company in the neighborhood that was it was the Trinity Church down the street. And my parents were part of the musical theater company, and the whole neighborhood was part of it. So we put on Gilbert and Sullivan plays, like once a year. There was a different play each year, Carousel and Pirates, and my mom produced, and my Mappa, formerly known as my dad, my current trans parent, that's a lot of things to say, was often the lead, like playing the Mikado, for example, in the Mikado.
Wow.
Yeah. And I met somebody recently who was there at the time, and they were like, your mother was a firestorm of energy. She could do so much. She just and I was like, oh, I got it from her. Like my mom, Elaine Soloway, in Chicago, while we were doing she was just producing her ass off, making the programs, and she ran a newsletter in the neighborhood and making advertisements, and she was promoting the hell out of things. So that's where I think I get my P.T. Barnum. I come by my P.T. Barnum naturally. And that was amazing. We performed together. And then at the same time, my sister and I would gather the neighborhood children and put on plays within the quadrangle of our sort of, it was a development, South Commons. It was built in the late 60s as an attempt to integrate people. It was sort of, we were all believing that the civil rights movement was going to change the world, and there were townhouses and low-rises and apartment buildings, and it was connected to Michael Reese Hospital and Mercy Hospital. My parent was a psychiatrist at the hospital, so everybody was kind of living, and everybody was mixing, and we put on these plays, my sister and I, in the courtyard, and that was great. One of my big memories was we put on Wizard of Oz, and there was a neighbor, I think her name was Mrs. Riccabini, and she wouldn't pay the 5 cents. She would watch it from her front porch for free.
That sounds like my people.
Like, I can see it from here for free. No, I will not give children 5 cents for a production of Wizard of Oz. I will not do that. And so we had a love of theater and a love of the show and opening night and ordering pizza afterwards at the cast party, and that was just, that was our childhood. That was like 0 to 10. And
Were they good?
the plays?
Yeah.
I think they were great. I
Yeah.
mean, Faith and I were producing them.
I bet you they were great.
Yeah, I think they were good. I wish, we didn't, those days we didn't record things like that. But I think it was really fun.
And did you do
Faith was the
theater in
Scarecrow.
high school?
I didn't do theater in high school. I think, so high school, I think I sort of went undercover and went into the business of being adorable. That became, I stopped being an artist and I was like, I'm going to be a cute girl for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
And that kept me very busy. It really did.
Yeah.
It was my main thing, and that's what I spent a lot of time
How was
thinking
that
about.
show?
It
Was
great.
that show good?
That's amazing because, you know, what you do when you're in that business is you try to have access to famous men with your cute girlness. And we did a lot of that. We stalked rock stars. We stood outside of hotels, and I met the Cars and Cheap Trick and Van Halen, and we stalked rock stars.
Oh my God.
We had a method because there was no internet, so I would I would open a record and look on the back and see who was the tour manager, get their name, and I would call like the 5 hotels in Chicago where somebody famous might stay: the Whitehall, the Ritz-Carlton, the Drake.
Yeah.
And I would ask for the tour manager's room, and if they put me through, we would hang up and head down to the hotel.
That's how you get shit done.
And that worked. We
Yeah.
met everybody, and nothing bad ever happened. Nothing untoured with David Lee Roth. Although he did sign his name on my arm and say, when your mom asks you what that means, you tell her sex and drugs. I was like, okay, I think it was 12.
Wow.
And then we graduated from rock stars to actors. We began stalking people like Christopher Atkins, Matt Dillon, Brooke Shields, all of whom were in town to make movies like Taps. Like there was a burgeoning John Hughes. Are you from Chicago?
Yes, I am.
You remember this feeling, right?
Yes.
The movies were coming.
They were here.
John Hughes was there, and they were making movies in the suburbs and Ordinary People, and you felt in my teenage years, I can get in on this. I mean, I was doing the cute girl way.
Yeah.
But
Hanging out
I
in
was
the
I was
corner.
an extra sometimes, like yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we were stalking. We were trying to meet Matt Dillon, I think, and we were in the laundry room of a hotel, and there was another kid there who was very attractive, and we said to him, "Are you in Taps?" And he said, "Yes, I have a very small part." And I said, "Well, can I get your autograph and your phone number just in case one day you're famous?" And he said, "Sure." And he wrote it down, and it was Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I had Tom Cruise's phone number for like the first 3 years of his fame.
Did you call? Never called.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I was thinking about those days, was how to meet those people. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why do I want to meet Brooke Shields? I don't know, but I did.
No one ever. You crushed it.
Yeah, we
You
did
crushed
it.
it.
We got all that done. And then,
And then what about college?
okay, so I
What-
went to Madison, and I
Yeah.
was involved in the Madison Badgers. I was involved in the cute girl pursuit for the first 3 years.
Uh-huh.
I had a very traumatic experience surrounding Sorority Rush and being a little sis
Oh.
at Sigma Alpha Epsilon. It was all awful. Greek system guys, they did not like Jill Soloway. It did not go well. But I had seen all these movies, like you see Porky's, and you're like, fun means I have to put on a red sweater and get blackout drunk at a football game.
Yeah.
This is what we're taught from watching television and movies. So I did that for the first 3 years, tried to be cute, tried to make guys like me and all that stuff. And then I somehow discovered the film department. And in my senior year, finally, I met the artists. And there was a guy named J.J. Murphy, and he was the professor at the film school there, and he had a program, like it was like a film class where we all made a film together. And there was maybe 15 or 20 of us, and everybody got a different role. Somebody would write the script, somebody would be the director, somebody would be the AD, somebody would be the producer, all that shit. And so we all, like, to compete for whose script we were going to make, we all wrote scripts. And I actually wrote one about me and Faith, but I lost.
Oh.
And it was some other dude's script, and I had to be the AD.
Oh. You went from like the highest to the lowest.
It was fine. I didn't think to even be mad or protest at that point, because I was like, wasn't really aware of how hard it was for women to find their voice. So it didn't, like, you know. I've since gone back and told J.J. Murphy that he crushed my dreams and my voice very early on.
What did he say?
He gave me very negative feedback about everything I made, and I really wanted to impress him. And it kind of, it knocked the wind out of my sails creatively, for sure, for years. Because you just assume if your professor is telling you there's a problem with your work that you're bad, you know. I don't think that white cis men realize how much shame women, people of color, and queer people have to get over to simply even write, and to simply even say I am, or I am the subject, not the object. There's such an enormous amount of shame when you remove yourself from the position of object that if anybody says to you, this sucks, you kind of believe it. Yeah. And that happened a lot for the next 10 years, maybe 15 years, where just I would get excited about something, but somebody wouldn't think it was great, and so I wouldn't pursue it, you know. But working as part of a group and like seeing what it was like on a film set in this, like at Madison, it was amazing. And I loved it, and we had so much fun, and it was great. The movie was called Ring of Fire, and I think I have it on YouTube. It was beautiful. And yeah, we got a bunch of people. I was like getting the punk rock kids in Madison to be extras in the movie scene. You know, it was really fun. And I think I had that feeling of like what it means to put on a show. It was like, again, that feeling of the neighborhood of like, okay, this is what it's like to get a group of 15, 20 people together and just go, yes, let's have fun. I came out of Madison thinking I wanted to go into advertising, and I was working as a production assistant. I was working as a producer on commercials at an advertising agency and enjoying it, but then like getting really interested in the crew. We would go to shoot a commercial, and I would just like talk to all the people who were on the crew and think, okay, these are my people, I want to be on the crew. And I became a production assistant, and I was great at that.
No, I'm sure.
I was like, I would get up at 4 in the morning and go get the tomatoes and slice them for the bagels and the cream cheese and the lox, and I was great at getting PA work. I made a business card, and then I got the creative directory, and I sent it to every single person in the creative directory. It was a really cute business card. And then I would call each person and say, hi, my name is Joey Soloway. I just sent you my business card. I'm interested in being a PA. I'm in the neighborhood. Would you mind if I stop by so you can connect a name with a face?
That's how you get a job, guys. That is how you
Did
get
that
a job.
like about 100 times. 3 people said yes, and I started working as a PA, you know, loving it. And I met on one of the shoots a guy named Jerry Blumenthal, who's not the late Jerry Blumenthal. He was one of the founding members of a documentary production company in Chicago called Cartemquin. And they were in the middle of making a documentary called Hoop Dreams. And I was like, I want to come work on Hoop Dreams. He brought me over there. Wow. And I worked in documentary for like a couple years with the most amazing, prolific people. And they had that same feeling, like that Hamish at home feeling of like everybody's working and there's bagels in the kitchen, there's coffee, and like we're all making art together and life is fun. And I started thinking about making my own documentary. Strangely, I attempted, here's what I mean by like I had ideas and then I didn't get good feedback, and so I would just give them up. I was working at Cartemquin. I recently found this proposal that I wrote, and I think I was like 21 years old. And it was for a documentary called She Wants It, about consent and desire. Wow. And like She Wants It is now, I think, probably gonna be the name of my memoir, but like, I was thinking about the exact same things. I wrote up a whole thing trying to get money to make a documentary about desire and consent, and wrote to some of like my heroes, and like nobody wrote back. I wasn't involved in the world of documentaries, so I didn't get the grant, and I just was like, I just thought my proposal sucked. I didn't think like I need to meet different people or reframe my ideas or figure out who's funding documentaries. I just turned that rejection into, a plan to, try something different. I don't know what it is. It's like the rejections, I think, when you don't have any faith in yourself, you just take them to mean like, okay, I suck. This is what I always thought. It's fine. I suck. I don't have to try anymore. So then I was thinking, okay, I don't want to make a documentary. I guess that documentary is not going to work. What else would I like to make a documentary about? And the answer was, what do I care about besides consent and desire? The answer was the Brady Bunch. I wanted to make a documentary about the Brady Bunch. I was obsessed with this question of of meeting Eve Plum, and I wanted to ask her, what is it like to be Jan, and how do people treat you? Is it weird for people to think you're Jan? You know, I wanted to interview all of the Bradys a lot about fame and about how it felt to be that person to so many people. Because Faith and I were obsessed with the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
We would play a game every night as we fell asleep where one of us would say the first line of the episode and the other one had to name the episode.
Wow.
We just knew every detail.
Oh my God.
And around this time, I was living in Chicago with a bunch of great actresses, and my best friend Becky was just perfecting her Jan Brady imitation to entertain me in Faith. And one day she was like, I don't know if you guys remember the episode where Jan thought she won an essay contest, but then she didn't. And Jan said, I didn't win. Nora Coombs did. My essay on Americanism. You know how I thought that I won the essay on Americanism? I didn't win. Nora Coombs did. Anybody remember this? Some people. And Faith and I were cracking up so hard, and we're like, we have to make the Brady Bunch a play. And we went to the thrift store and bought a bunch of 70s clothes. And I listened to, I would listen to the Brady Bunch, and then I had headphones on a tape recorder where you press the buttons, and I transcribed a Brady Bunch episode. And we got 10 of our friends together, the girls, the boys, Alice, Mike, and Carol. Carol was played by Jane Lynch.
I saw that.
Mike was Andy Richter.
I saw that.
Melanie Hutzel ended up being Jan. Becky became Marcia. An amazing comedian named Susan Messing was Cindy. A comedian named Mari Weiss was Alice. A guy named Pat Town, who is in the I Love Dick pilot, played Greg. We're all still friends. Ben Zook played Peter, and a guy named Tom Booker played Bobby. And we just literally put the episode up as theater on stage in Chicago, at the Annoyance Theater in Chicago, and it fucking took off. It was craziness.
You can see this episode on YouTube. I saw it.
Yeah.
The episode is straight dialogue,
Yeah, we just
and
do
it plays like a raunchy comedy. It's
so funny.
There are more laughs in this than the original premiere of Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
It's obscene.
It's obscene.
People are
Absurd.
losing their minds and their bowels in the audience.
Yeah. It
So
was crazy.
you should
It was
definitely
crazy.
watch it.
Yeah, Real Life Brady Bunch was called. And it was sort of like this, where we had couches, and we had also pillows in the front, so people were really cozy. We had chairs, couches, pillows. It was in Chicago at the Annoyance Theater. We tried it for 1 week, and then the second week we were, I was taking a taxi to the theater, and I was like, oh shit, there's something going on. There must be a fire. The streets are filled with people. I wonder what's going on. I hope people can get to our show.
Yeah.
I hope our audiences will be able to get to our show. And we got out of the taxi, and there was a line around the block of 300 or 400 people to get into a little tiny space, this size. And we were just like, what the fuck? And we went on the roof of the Annoyance Theater, and we just looked at the. Yeah. So then the next week we made it 2 shows. And then we felt really bad about the line because there was chaos of who was going to get in. So we put the tickets on sale at 12 noon. On that Tuesday. We did it on Tuesday nights, 2 shows. And at 12 noon, hundreds of people would be lining around the block. And people were sending their assistants to get tickets. And it was insane. And because of my P.T. Barnum-esque genetic legacy, I alerted the press. Made a few phone calls, and I was wrote, I think I called people because we didn't have email. So I called somebody at the Sun-Times, I called somebody at Chicago Magazine. And and then stuff started. We started to get incoming, as Donald Trump calls it. Suddenly we were in People magazine. It was everywhere. All the famous people were coming each week. It was Madonna's in the audience tonight. Tom Hanks is in the audience tonight. It was just that feeling of holy shit, everybody's coming and we have something. And I was 25.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an addictive thing. And it was me and Faith was on the piano, and I was on the laugh track. I would operate the laugh track.
So perfect.
Have so much fun with
So
overdoing the laugh
perfect.
track. Horrible joke, play the laugh track really loud, and really long, for way too long, a full minute for a joke that's not a joke. And then we would get the laugh. It was so fun.
And did you travel with that show?
And then, so what happened? Yeah, more producers came. Ron Delsner, who's a producer in New York, and he hired Jeffrey Seller, who's now producing Hamilton, to put on a touring show of it. And we toured We started in Rhode Island, like rehearsing in Rhode Island. We toured in New York and LA and went everywhere, Australia, all over.
What's interesting to me is it's like I was thinking a lot about that beginning, and like just there's also interviews of you walking in the street.
Oh, me and Faith?
Yeah, it's.
And I have
so
my
great.
dreadlocks that I made with wood glue.
You wanted it so bad.
It's like putting wood glue in my hair to
The
have dreadlocks.
expedited dreadlocks. I tried that
I know,
too.
it's just not where you cannot expedite. They will not be expedited.
They will not be. They will come in their own time.
Yes, if they will come at all.
But I was thinking about how that was really, I guess, like a comedic lampoon of like family representation, lovingly,
Yes.
lovingly, but a definite comedic lampoon.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's very much you saying like, is this how we're saying families are?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I mean, we talk about the word family all the time on set on Transparent, and I was just thinking, Transparent feels like this is the real deal. Like almost you came full circle, and it's like, no, this is what a family is. It's so personal to you, and I'm just kind of curious what that through line is for you in terms of families, family representation.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the individuals in the family, and specifically elevating female perspective, but just that family concept is pretty powerful. When I was watching, the real life Brady Bunch, there was weirdly some things in common to what we do.
Yeah.
The style is totally different, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what your feelings are about that.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that's cool about a family or any kind of group process is like that it has that circle where everybody's vibing off some central idea of what is funny, and everybody's playing in a group, and there isn't that feeling of hierarchy. Yeah. On certain shows or in certain plays, it's like the person who's supposedly the most important person, whether that's the director or an actor, and everybody kind of tries to stay in line and make sure that person's happy. So a family and the Pfeffermans and the yes and feeling of a theater, like The Annoyance, where we did this show, and that feeling in college of all of us making a film together. It's like, it's a kind of leaderless feeling where everybody's sort of vibing around goodness, and goodness meaning productivity, great process, respecting the process, the product will follow, that you just respect the process and you have a lot of respect for coming with love and sharing and having an openness that you can't make mistakes. And then I think it was taking those dreams about the Brady Bunch and family, and I think over the next like maybe 10 or 20 years between that and now, there were shows like 8 is Enough, Family, All in the Family, even shows like 30 something, where I think tonally, like Jason Katims and tonally I was sort of like dreaming about a kind of world, a kind of show that I wanted to make, that just kind of a homey show, like a show that feels homey, that you want to just be in. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'll get to that later, but yeah, I think it's fascinating, the sort of long build of potential energy that you carried for so long without the approval that you at that time you felt you needed, that everything, including the show of Transparent, but for your own personal life, was very explosive at that point. But I don't want to jump to that just yet. I guess I want to get to, so what, did the real life Brady Bunch lead to anything, or
Yeah, well we also created a play that was running, I think, on Saturday nights when the real life Brady Bunch was happening, called the Ms Vagina Pageant.
Yes.
And I think the Ms Vagina Pageant is to the Brady Bunch as I Love Dick is to Transparent.
Yes.
It's like this kind of receptacle for all of the fury that accrued.
Yes.
The fury and the confidence that accrued from the success, where it's like, okay, now we're going to take this attention and go, wah!
Yeah.
And the Ms Vagina Pageant was amazing, and it had Becky Thayer and Melanie Hutzel and Beth Cahill and Susan Messing and Kate Flannery. And yeah, it was a parody of beauty pageants. It had little video segments where we took the Ms Vagina contestants around Chicago on a tourist trip, and they went on a boat. And, we just, it was like, So Becky was just reminding me that we're like, we took the Ms Vagina contestants to Grant Park where they came upon a slain woman. It was like those videos. There was like a woman dead on the ground. Then the vaginas went to.
Did they give speeches over the
They
body?
so at the end they give speeches, and when they come out to give their final speech, a giant photograph of their bush is projected behind them. So it was like, Miss Tennessee, how do you think you'd like to change the world? And she would go, well, my thoughts on changing the world, and then a picture of her vagina would show up behind her. And the thing that we did, because who wants to really show the world what their vagina looks like, is somebody is raising her hand in the back. Okay. We all took pictures of our vaginas. Faith and I used the camera, and we took anonymous bush photos, and we mixed them up so nobody knew whose was whose. And we put ours in there too.
That's great.
So yeah, there was kind of a revolving every night. You could be giving your speech in front of anybody's pussy. And so you might be giving your how to change the world speech in front of your own pussy, but nobody knows except for you. So it worked. And you know, the show was a huge success, and then there was like that thing where like some people from SNL came, and Robert Smigel came, and Bob Odenkirk, and they were like, this show is great, and then like a week later it was like, Lorne Michaels is coming. Wow. And it became a real pageant.
Yeah.
And then like the next week, 2 limos pulled up in front of our theater, and it was Lorne Michaels and also Quincy Jones. It was just coming for fun, to just like hang out with Lorne. Yeah. Lorne's like, you want to go to this thing with me? Quincy's like, all right, if I have my own car.
That's right. He's a smart man.
So they came in, and like they hired 3 women right off the show, right for SNL.
Wow.
Yeah. And, or was it 3 women or 2 women? It was 2 women. It was Beth and Melanie. But everybody, like, it became weird because it was a pageant, and suddenly it was like, who's going to win? You know, and 2 people won, and you know. So then like that was around the same time the Brady Bunch was going on tour, and we were part of this theater in Chicago called The Annoyance, and it became just a dreadful political split of who was going to New York and who loved the Brady Bunch and who thought that the Brady Bunch wasn't actual art because we were just doing TV shows. And who was going to stay behind in Chicago and do the real art, and who were the assholes who were going to go to New York for the Brady Bunch because it was fake art, and it was just like it's 40 people and we split. You know, it's like I think that as a group we came to like this place where it was like just too big. Yeah. So half the people left and followed me and Faith, and half the people stayed behind and you know followed Mick Napier, who I still love, but at the time it was like you had to pick Mick Napier or Joe Soloway. Yeah. It was friendships ended. And yeah, we took us to New York. We did the Real Life Brady Bunch at the Village Gate. We did crazy things like put like 17 people in one apartment at some point for our living conditions. And what happened from there? We did a sketch show for MTV called Head Cheese that no one's ever seen, but it has like Andy Richter in it. It's really funny and dark and awful, and it was the exact same time that The State was happening, and they were like, The State. Not these people, right. Not Head Cheese, The State. And off The State went to have their huge career, and Head Cheese just went bleh.
And were you always earning money, or were you doing side jobs?
Yeah, we were just kind of hustling, you know, whatever.
Living cheap. And,
yeah.
And
what else would we do? We would sometimes go be guests on talk shows for money, like I was on Jenny Jones for $100.
Yeah. What did you do?
Remember that? When you could go be on Jenny Jones for $100?
What did you do?
You make up a
whole thing.
You make up a story, a personality, or something.
Who were you?
I can't remember. I need to find that.
Oh my God.
We just hustled, you know. However you're gonna make a couple $100. I mean, this is back in LA. My rent was like $425 a month. Yeah. So yeah, you got to come up with just 4 of those hundreds a month.
And then you can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah, just 4 of them a month. That was easy. You know, it wasn't bad. So that was And then what happened? I got pregnant with you, my wonderful son Isaac, who's here. And I think I was like, I gotta stop fucking around. Gotta get Jewish real quick, make some money.
Yes.
Gonna be a mom. And I wrote a spec script, strangely, of the Larry Sanders Show, and it was about Hank Kingsley.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
he was the lead in my spec script, and it was about Hank Kingsley doing a multi-level marketing thing and selling lotion.
It's perfect.
And just trying to get everybody to buy his thing. So I was writing for Jeffrey Tambor. That was the first thing I wrote. So crazy. And I got hired on the Steve Harvey Show.
Oh, wow.
That was my first TV job.
And was that was here in LA?
Yep. I was back in LA at this point, and yeah.
And so how close is this to 6 Feet Under?
This is like maybe 5 years out from 6
Okay.
Feet, yeah.
What kind of writing did you do before 6 Feet Under?
Again, like terrified, sure that my voice was awful, maybe writing in my journal, writing, you know, like in high school, writing to entertain my friends, but just like never really believing that I had a professional path for my writing. I mean, wanting to believe it, but again, every time something bad would happen, I would just assume that that was the truth and not keep pushing.
And how
Or not even bad would happen, people wouldn't write back, which people don't do. Like, I don't write back all the time to people. And I, you know, it's only because I get like, people will send me, I don't know, somewhere around like 50, I get about 50 emails a week where people are pitching me ideas, and I don't have time to write back to everybody. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But I had written a movie, and I remember I put it in an envelope. I got a bunch of envelopes. I printed up 20 copies of my screenplay, and I put them in envelopes, and I sent one to Ben Stiller. I just like got people's addresses and sent them out, and nobody. But why would they? But to me, I was like, oh, my movie must suck because nobody has responded. I must be a horrible writer. I bet Ben Stiller read it and was embarrassed. And didn't know how to tell me. Because I met him once. He came to the Brady Bunch, I remember. So he, you know, like, whatever it was, So you just you take those rejections and you just pile them on yourselves as shame confirmations. Just kept doing that. Isn't it sad?
It's super sad.
Yeah.
It's scary to think that you almost didn't climb out of that.
I know, like somehow still believing that I had something to offer is a miracle.
So how did 6 Feet Under happen? Jill
So,
was the writer
okay.
on 6 Feet Under, you guys.
Yeah, that's true. So from Steve Harvey Show, I sort of was in sitcom land for a couple of years. I worked on a show called Oblongs, a show called Nikki, the Nikki Cox Show. I was sort of in those half-hour rooms, learning what it means to, you know, pitch jokes during a live show and just all that fun. It was really awesome. I was for sure the only woman in the room, or one of very few women in the room, but it was always really fun, and I loved it. I never had like any issues with feeling bad at that time about the lack of representation of female voices. I was just enjoying being in the writer's room. But I think when I was working on Nikki, it was like so tack-way, that show. Do you guys remember Nikki Cox was a female wrestler? Nobody. Bruce Helford, Drew Carey, this was his Ms Vagina Pageant after Drew Carey. And yeah, he was like, "Bah!" And we were just kind of sad, great writers. It was Scott Buck who ended up working on Dexter, and Ben Wexler, like a bunch of great writers were all working on Nikki, and Ron Zimmerman. We were all in Helford land, and we just decided to put on a show. Oh no, I think I created a show called Box. I have not been afraid of the scatological Box. It was an all-woman show, and it was women reading monologues, and it was at the Comedy Central stage. And then next week, or 2 weeks later, we did another one. It was like monologues, people reading stories about their lives, false, you know, fiction or nonfiction. I wrote something for Becky to read called Courtney Cox's Asshole.
Yes.
Becky was Marsha. And you know, it's about reclaiming your creativity by thinking about what you want to pimp your friends into doing.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the stupidest thing I could get my friend to say on stage? And I will sit in the audience and I will watch her. And with that notion, I wrote this monologue called Courtney Cox's Asshole, where Becky was Courtney Cox's personal assistant. And it was a monologue about how hard that was. There was asshole bleaching involved. Not that she had to do, but there was a rumor about Courtney Cox having bleached her anus, and it was this production assistant's job to quash the rumors. I wrote it to be like, what can I make Becky say? Knowing that the very last line of the monologue would be, and I realized I am Courtney Cox's asshole. It Guys, it was a huge success. It's that essay that got me the job on 6 Feet Under.
Wow.
So I do want to just like, I don't know if this is supposed to be advicey, but I will say that
Yes.
like, I never was satisfied. I didn't believe in myself, but I always was willing to put myself in the uncomfortable place of risk. I was always like, I don't have that fear that nobody will show up. I don't have that like, what if nobody comes?
Yeah.
I have that feeling of like, if I'm just having fun and there's nobody in the audience except for me and I'm watching Becky say this monologue on stage, it will be very sad, but it will still be very funny.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to like have that whimsical feeling of like, Becky's my best friend. We will remember this night forever if nobody shows.
Yeah.
And just like that kind of feeling of like surfing on possibility, on whimsy.
Yeah.
And it ended up, like somebody heard her do that, and my agent used that as a writing sample. Alan Ball read it. I got hired on fucking 6 Feet Under from it. That's great, right? And I was like so frustrated, and I hated my life, and I was working on bad sitcoms. And I was just writing this thing for my own personal delight. What is the thing that I want to see?
And what season was it that you got brought in on 6 Feet
I
Under?
was hired for the second season. So again, I didn't know what it was because it wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
And Scott Buck was also hired because he was part of like, I guess people had come to see, we went like, we called it Fox, then we called it Blow, then we called it Sit and Spin. And then it was any gender. And Sit and Spin's still going on actually.
Yeah.
Every other Thursday at the Comedy Central stage, people are reading monologues and it's amazing. Some of the best comedy writers in town and a real feeling of community around finding your voice. A really sort of, it's like stand-up, but you have your paper in front of you. And so you can read your thing that you wrote, but without that feeling of, what if I forget?
Yeah.
So it's a great place for just like people finding their voice. And I guess, Alan Ball maybe heard about it and came. And so I went to meet him. It was like, have you heard of American Beauty? Yes. The director of American Beauty has a TV show about a funeral home. Cool. He would like to meet you. Great. They're going to send over the first season for you to watch. It hasn't aired yet, but you can watch it so that you can be ready for the meeting. And that was 10 VHS tapes in a day. And sat on my floor in front of the TV and popped in the first one. And so I saw it before, the world saw it. Yeah, and I think I was just like crying by the end of the first episode or the second episode. I was like, this is going to be my job to write for these people. Like, I couldn't believe that I was going to get to write on the show. And I was just like sobbing, Well, yeah. I mean, I guess they called me and told me that I got the job. And then I watched it. That's what happened.
Yeah.
They called me and told me I got the job, and then I watched it, and I just felt like a major life beat change, because it was the first time I was going to get paid to do something that I felt like a huge amount of respect for. I had been getting paid to write, but it was sort of like on shows that I wasn't proud of.
And so what you knew when you saw it that this show was like a huge hit.
Yeah.
And what was that show like culturally? Like, was that a change for you? What was the room like? What was the
room
process
was great.
of
It's the
making
same process
show?
we do on Transparent and Dick, where it's just fun. It's really just reducing the anxiety. Nobody's in trouble. You sit in a room, you put the whiteboard up, and you just enjoy each other's company. Talk about the characters. By sharing what's happening in your real life, those stories end up in the characters' stories. It really is like, if you protect the process, the product is pretty great if the process has integrity, which is, I mean, for me, the other people don't use this process. My process is, we're going to have fun. And I'm going to protect the having fun part. I'm going to protect the part where everybody feels like they can be free to take risks, and the product will take care of itself. So I'm just kind of like my job, if I'm directing or producing or show running, I'm just trying to keep the fire going underneath the hot air balloon so it can rise. That's what Alan Ball did. In the center of the room were the Fishers. He was so sweet. He was never like, no, Claire wouldn't do that, He was never like, this is my show. No, that's not the show. He just was like, oh, and open, and wow, and yes, and how about that, He taught me that feeling of allowing the conversation to flow naturally, and really low impact work. We started at 10, we left at 4, total respect. you know, if you ever said to him, like, I have a dentist appointment, he'd be like, this is just a TV show. Go to the fucking dentist. It was so chill. And it was like Kate Robin, Bruce Eric Kaplan, Scott Buck, Craig Wright, me, Rick Cleveland, Cara DePaulo. I'm probably leaving somebody really important out. Oh, yeah. I don't know who I'm leaving out. Somebody's going to be mad. But fantastic writers. And yeah, we had the time of our lives. We just laughed our asses off and just had room jokes and yeah, laughed till we cried and people fell in love and got married and broke up and, you know, went through deaths and it was just beautiful. It was the gold standard, the standard bearer of TV writer's room experience.
And did you have a feeling when you hit that point where you thought to yourself, this is a new plane now?
Yeah.
Did you know what I mean? Did you decide, like, I'm in higher energy and I'm gonna stay here?
Well, it was more like, so my first episode was in season 2 and it was called Back to the Garden. And I started to realize how writing was about creating a reality that you wanted to live in. And so I wrote the episode where Claire went to visit her aunt in Topanga. I created like that whole world of the sister and Topanga and that world for her. And it was like, Claire has a relationship with a boy in a treehouse. And then I was like walking around on Sunset Gower and I'm like, they're building the treehouse. Like I saw people building the treehouse, you know? And I was like, it's really happening. They're building the world. And we went out to the land and and the people were there. And I was like, oh my God, this is the funnest thing in the world. You write things you want to experience and then
you go.
100 people make it for you. And then you go and you watch the actors do the thing that you wrote, you know? It's the best. It's the most amazing thing. That's why I'm kind of always reminding people, like, it's privilege. It's like the reason that like white cis guys who have had control of this business for years don't give it up is because it's the fucking funnest thing in the world. You write reality, people build it. You have feelings about people, you create fake versions of them, you cast people you have crushes on. You tell them what to do.
Yeah, and then they have to do it.
And then they have to do it. You know? It's the best job. You know? Think about I Love Dick and me like directing that scene with like Catherine Hahn and Kevin Bacon. She gets her period and, you know, you come up with jokes from your life. I remember like that scene was like, I had this joke in my head that I wanted to use my whole life, which is like when a really tender man thinks a woman is beautiful and he wants to tell her gently that she has very beautiful breasts. Sometimes the word breasts just keeps going. And the man's trying to be sweet, but he's finding himself going breasts. I didn't know when to say when the last S is. So so you get a funny idea when you're doing it. You give it to Kevin Bacon. He says it. Yeah. It's the best job.
The best. You've been waiting 20 years to put that little moment
It's like I'm gonna make
into Kevin Bacon's mouth, and he has to do it.
And he has to do it.
Yes.
And he kills it. And then Catherine laughs her head off, and I laugh my head off, and you have to be careful if you don't ruin the take. Like, it's so fun. And so it wasn't quite that yet with 6 Feet Under. I was really enjoying seeing my words come to life, and then but the night that I turned in the script, this is like I think a big turning point. I had my assignment. It was called Back to the Garden. We broke the script in the room. It involved a Jewish funeral also, so it was like a whole Jewish thing. And I turned in my script, my first draft, and Alan Ball wrote me an email the next morning, and it said something like, fucking incredible. Something like that, just 2 words. And I became a 100 times better writer in that moment because somebody said I was great. And so from there on, I was like, I'm great. And I felt so much more comfortable writing. I didn't hate even now I'm struggling with, I have an idea. The first thought I have is, it's the wrong idea, it's a bad idea. I still have that all the time. And I'm still struggling with how to get that first thought that says, like if I'm editing right now, if I'm watching a cut, and I'm watching a scene and I want to shape a scene, and I think, okay, another beat before Josh says this line. I have the thought, I'm going to put another beat in here. And then I have the thought, don't say it, it's a stupid thought. And then I have to go past that and go, can you put another beat in here right before Josh? Like, my brain still tells me I don't know what I'm doing and I suck all the time. Still. It's crazy. So I'm like having to do a work around that. And so I think because this is going to sound crazy, but because Alan Ball was gay, and he was my first gay boss, and I didn't have I wasn't using my cute girl thing. I wasn't like flirting or in love with my boss, as was sort of distracting me on previous shows. All those bad shows that I worked on, I was always like also maybe having an affair with somebody at work. Like just to keep it interesting, guys, because it's boring. And and so this was the first time where like somebody was telling me I was great, and it wasn't because he was trying to sleep with me.
And you knew for a fact. Yeah.
I knew that Alan Ball did not want to have sex with me. Yes. And it really, gave me a lot of confidence. And then one of the things that I started to do on that show is we would rehearse, and then the crew would light it, and then I would go to sit with the actors, like Rachel Griffiths and Peter Krause, and I would be like, let's figure out the beats. Like I was looking for the beats even then.
Yeah.
Because I would want to get rid of lines that were unnecessary. And so they would do it a few times. We would like get it up on its feet. They would start to move around, and I would be able to see these lines are nonsense. They need to go. Yeah. And so I started to see that purpose of what it meant to work with the actors to find the beats in a scene, which is my favorite thing to do. Yeah. I will be selling my master class in beats blocking at the LAX Hilton.
I'll be there. I will be there. You should be there. Jill is the least precious writer, director that I've ever been around. I mean, she's brilliant. You're all here, but you would be so surprised to know how unprecious she is about her dialogue. But what she is precious about are beats. Yeah. And these are the moments where things change in scenes, which is a whole other master class.
The beat change is where plot and story high five.
That's right.
That's what I figured out. Yeah, it's like you just kind of, you're constantly doing this in a scene, and the actors are, and it's like a little do-si-do. And
one thing I wanted to ask you about, I mean, this is the stuff that I really want to, we're going to do this whole history thing because we're in the career of Joey Soloway.
Are you guys getting bored yet? Are you sure? Okay. This is a long night.
So one more...
I invited my son. I was like, I just found out it's going to be 2 hours. You don't have to stay if you don't want to.
So
I still do it.
We're going to show our vaginas later, so we're going to spice it up a little bit.
The vagina slides are coming.
They're coming.
Jay and I will both show our vaginas.
We will.
Have to guess
we'll show our vaginas.
Whose is whose.
So... I guess one thing, just philosophically, that I wanted to talk about.
I think it's vulvas, actually. It was our vulvas. It wasn't our vulvas, guys. It was our, like, a pubic mound.
Pubic mound, yeah.
It wasn't our vaginas.
Yeah.
We weren't, you guys get the idea, right?
Yeah.
We weren't, yeah.
It wasn't under, it was
frontwards.
there
was nothing under. It was very frontal.
Frontal, yeah.
She was just like, oh, why is she being so gross? Just go in there.
In terms of your process, one thing that you were talking about, and which relates to this bigger idea that I brought up earlier about this enormous potential energy that you carried with you, in terms of really breaking and releasing, I guess, what it is that you uniquely have to, the most you thing. I sense in you, in working with you, you have an enormous patience. And you have a patience for allowing, I mean, I'm sure you guys can even feel it talking to Jill. She has a patience for allowing ideas to arrive in their own time. And it is insanely rare. It is, I don't think I've ever felt it as strongly as with you. And it puts everyone at ease. It puts the writers at ease. It puts the actors at ease. Because when we get there, I mean, it's one thing to say anything can happen, and that is wonderful, and we are free to do what we want to do. But there is an energy in you which transmits the feeling that it's going to happen. And we don't know what it is. And when I hear of how hard it is for you to trust your instincts, even in that split second, and you're
my
training.
instincts are good about that. I'm good at the creating space for everybody. I don't have any fear about going, it's going to happen, we know it's going to happen, so it's going to get silly, we're going to have fun. My instincts are about my own personal, like it's more about when I'm shaping something small, or it's like my own voice. But my art gathering, I don't have any insecurity about. I have a strange lack of insecurity about that. That I'll throw a party, I'll put on a show, I'll make a flyer before I have any idea what the show's going to be. You know,
Yeah.
Faith has that too, where
Yeah.
we just love to make the flyer before the show's written. It's so fun. Like 6 weeks out, make the flyer, promote it, and then start
And then
writing.
figure out what the show is.
Yeah, you get the brand first. You know, you just figure out.
Yeah.
That part. Yeah, I don't have insecurity about that for some reason.
Why?
I don't know. I think that might be just like a strange, like, I could be on the spectrum a little bit. Like I don't have that kind of fear. Like, you know how people have like certain, there's like a sort of social disease where people are too nice. Have you heard of that? It's like a, yeah.
Everyone has it.
Yeah.
Everyone.
But I do have a strange belief in the larger things somehow.
Yeah.
That, I don't know it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different muscle. The belief that like a party can happen or an event can happen and it's going to be fine and fun, I got. But the part where I'm just like, yeah, trying to connect to my own ideas and voice, that is constantly assaulted.
You do also have the commitment to do the work, whatever it may be, whether it's slicing tomatoes, or you will slice tomatoes if, I mean, literally, if like the family, because our family on television is we're a mess as people and as the characters, and we have become a family and we're like hard to manage, and sometimes she has to slice tomatoes as opposed, literally you have to make us soup sometimes to get us through moments or whatever, but that is one thing, is your relentless commitment to it. And because, you know, another thing that I've observed about you is you are relentless about how hard you will work and not let yourself off the hook until that thing arrives. And I think a lot of people who are as successful as you, most people, let go of that. And I think that also relates to this thing where you have been carrying your potential for a long time and you've arrived and now you have a platform and we've talked about this. Can you talk about that a little bit about...
This is so awesome. I feel like you're like the best psychiatrist. He's got a beard and he sees me in ways that I haven't thought about.
Well, you did that for me, so... I talked about that a week and a half ago.
You did?
But yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
Yeah, I think, well, so my parent came out as trans about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Phone call, Sunday morning, you know, hanging around with my kid. I think, yeah, you weren't home, or you were at college? No, where were you? It was Felix who was home, but I don't know where you were. And my parent, they were like, can I talk to you about something important? I was like, ooh. And I moved Felix into the other room, and they came out, and it was, you know, memorable, beautiful, vulnerable conversation, and the tiny voice in the back of my mind was like, this is your TV show. Like, this shit's gonna happen. And it was unquestioning. It was like, it was so clear. It was like, oh, this is your thing. And yeah, I just started writing. Like maybe a few weeks, I had just made my first short. I had just got into Sundance with my short film. And yeah, I took it in. It was a lot, obviously. It's a lot for a whole family. But you know, fast forward over a couple years, I wrote a script. I mean, I had to finish. First, I went to Sundance with my short. Then I made a whole feature to distract myself from the reality of my own life. And that was called Afternoon Delight. And that was my first feature. And that's a little smattering. Just a small smattering. Thank you.
If you haven't seen it, you're lucky because now
Yeah.
you have a good movie you get to watch.
Yeah, it's very transparent, actually. Raquel and Jeff and, you know, Rachel and Jeff were the characters' names. It's like very precursor of Transparent and Dig. And when that was done, I went to Sundance. Same thing keeps happening, guys. Big night at Sundance, huge opening. All kinds of amazing buyers came to the opening, and they came to the party afterwards. And Focus and Searchlight were like, "Don't you dare sell it to anybody else." And the next morning, a critic savaged it in the Reporter. What's his name? I'd love to call him out because I'm so mad at him. Chris McCarthy? Savaged it. Bidding war went away. Nobody cared anymore. It keeps happening, guys. You have to keep fucking fighting. Nobody cares about it except for you. And the disappointments just get bigger. It's like one thing was Ben Stiller didn't open, Yeah. And this is like, a critic hates you. It just keeps happening. And you have to just be ready to keep fighting back and be like, this doesn't mean I'm awful, And so I won the directing award after that at Sundance, which felt better a little bit. It was like I was so upset, and I was going to go home, and I was going to leave early because everybody was like, "There's a storm coming," and I was like, "I've been at Sundance too long." That feeling everybody has.
1.5 days.
Yes.
I believe. Yeah.
And I called my friend who worked at Sundance. I'm like, "I'm going home. There's a storm coming. I got to get out of here." And she's like, "You might want to go to the awards." And I was like, "Ooh."
Ooh.
So I went to the awards and won the directing award, and then was happy again. And Ed Burns handed me the award, and I went up to him and I was like, "I just got the most awful review. I can't believe I'm winning this." And he's like, "Welcome to adulthood." This is it. You are now an artist. This is how it goes. You have to just be ready to be in that dryer with a gym shoe, getting hit in the head over and over again. It just keeps happening. It's not going. That shit's not going anywhere. I finished Afternoon Delight, and then I was like really realizing it's time for me to make Transparent, and I started writing it. I was actually, a little known fact, when I was going to write Transparent, I met Gabby Hoffman when I did Afternoon Delight, and I loved Gabby, and I was like immediately talked to her about being the younger sister. I asked Catherine to be Sarah. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Catherine was supposed to be Sarah, and we were gonna make it happen. And right around the same time that happened, the show with Philip Seymour Hoffman happened, Happy-ish. So she got pulled away. Painful, ripped from but I was like, it's fine, we'll figure it out. We cast Amy Landecker, who I couldn't even imagine any other Sarah. Yeah. Gabby and Sarah and I found you. We have our special love story that night. Do you guys know our story? No. Do you want to tell it? I've been yakking.
Sure.
Tell the story.
Well, without going into too many details, it was very, Jill and I were at a direct party for directors together.
Yeah, and I was the only woman.
You were the only woman.
Yeah.
And I was...
And about 50 men.
And I was
or maybe
all
25
over
men.
her because I had just seen Afternoon Delight, and I was just like, and we started talking about our TV shows that we were about to make. We were both about to make a TV show, and I had this Togetherness show on HBO, and Jill had Transparent. She was telling me how she had the story, essentially a story about her family, and she had the whole thing cast, but she didn't have the son, and you were looking for like a wildly insecure / charismatic mid-30s Jewish man. And I said, I know all of them.
You did, you gave me names.
I was like, that's what directors do.
You're like David Krumholtz.
I was pushing Krumholtz hard.
Yeah.
Krumholtz is a secret gem, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not that secret, but he's got the juice.
Yeah.
And we just talked about it, and it went away for a little while, but we just got along. And
Yeah.
I think we talked about our unusually close marriages with our siblings. We just rapped. And
Talked about cameras.
Talked about cameras.
What kind of camera you used.
And just the process, because we both have similar process of like freedom on set and allowing. And then we were in mid-conversation, and you turned to me and you said, "It's you. He's you. You're him." And I said, "What?" And you were like, "I think you could be incredible for the son." And I fought you.
Yeah.
I said, "No, I'm not really an actor. I'm doing my own show. I'm only an eighth Jewish. No.
Yeah.
And then I came in the next morning because Jill is Jill. And I came in the next morning and you were casting with Edie and we did scenes together. And Edie and I did scenes together and it was very in flow. And then
And I acted with you a little bit?
yeah.
That's another thing I did when I auditioned people is I would always improvise with actors and I always just do the scene with them.
And it got
It's
better.
so fun.
It was amazing too,
Yeah.
because whenever we went off, it just got really. And we
That's
both.
a great tip for anybody who's auditioning. Like you don't have to sit across from the person. You can just improvise with them to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I did a scene with Gabby and Amy, and it was the barbecue scene from the pilot, and we finished it. And I looked at Jill, and you kind of had this look like, who are you to deny what is happening here? But I was still like, just like, no, that's fine. I'll be.
Well, then we had the whole legal drama.
We had a whole thing because I was.
He was about to start making Togetherness
I was
for
gonna
HBO,
make Togetherness,
and
it
this was
wasn't-
Amazon, and they were like, hell no, you're
Hell
not
no.
taking our creator and casting him in your show.
And Jill kept holding me to this point and I was weak. I was like, I can't do it. It's too much. I ain't gonna. But Jill just kept saying, this is what we want, and we just need to trust that we're gonna find it somehow. And we did it, and we just held together in sort of a loving formation, and the gates opened.
Yeah.
And now I'm an actor.
Yeah. Yay.
And so let me jump ship again and say, let's talk about something bigger than this timeline. Is you have a knack for finding people's unique talents as well as your own. You found it for me. I'm the person who is the main writer-director, but I'm the person in my family where everybody's like, stop having so many feelings, you're making us uncomfortable.
Wow.
And you turned me into an actor, and that's really more of who I am than the other things that I was doing, because I thought, you know, when I was growing up, I thought like theater people were annoying and they were loud, and you have to be loud to be an actor, and I'm not loud and I'm shy, and then that you turn that into an asset. But I want you to also talk about your cultivation and curation of what I view as magical beings, specifically like your muses that you have used. And you talked about it a little bit with when you said you like to take your friends and make them do crazy shit.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to it. It's like when you saw Gabby in that movie at Sundance,
Yeah.
it opened. You saw something.
Yeah. Well, I saw her on Louis first.
Oh, yes.
I saw
did
her
too.
on Louis, and I was like, who is this
Who
person?
is that?
I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like specifically like Gabby and Catherine Hahn, of
Yeah.
course.
And Amy.
And Michaela
who's also
and
on Louis.
Amy.
Yeah. And Michaela. Yeah.
Michaela, you seem to like see people and show them in a new light. And I would like you to talk about that a little bit. I mean,
it's totally unconscious. I just cast people that I'm a little bit in love with.
yeah.
I just always want to cast people who I feel excited to see, and I can't wait to see, and I'm too nervous to see, and you know that I can't wait to spend time with, and like Carrie Brownstein. I mean, I just like all I wanted to do was make her laugh, you know. And so I acted in that scene where she came her first day to work, and I was playing the teacher, and you know, I was like, my goal is to make Carrie Brownstein laugh. Like I'm using the production as a permission structure to spend time with people I'm excited to meet. That's just art.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, that's your voice, and that's desire, and it's you don't overthink it. You know, when people will ask me sometimes, like, should I cast somebody who's great for the role but who's not funny? I'm like, no. You have to cast somebody who's gonna fucking kill you. Yeah. Every line where you just have to pee because of the thing they just said, and only those people, you know. Only those people where you feel that excitement. I mean, I sometimes make the joke of like all of those years where I was like doing the cute girl thing and dating and thinking about men I was dating, and it was like I had a sort of promiscuous energy. That is all now my art. That's my directing. It's like, I can love 100 people in a month. And I can cast them and hire them, and I can just take all that energy that would have gotten wasted, especially for women, about manipulating situations to try and make a guy do something. I think a lot of people do it, but that's what me and my friends were up to. Long conversations about getting men to do whatever it was, proposing, dates. It involved blowouts, it involved clothes, it involved a huge game that was never ending. And like all of that energy is now my directing energy, my producing energy, my writing energy. It all shifted over to work and monetization.
And you paid? You get paid for that shit.
And I get paid for it. Yeah, that's mine now. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do. I never think about like anything except for I love Catherine Hahn. I can't wait to see her. I love Michaela Watkins. Of course I'm going to, she's my friend.
Yeah.
I just try to do the things that I see Judd Apatow doing, and Seth Rogen, and Jack Black, and Zach Galifianakis. Get your funniest friends, put them in a room, crack the fuck up, turn the camera on. It's pretty simple. All the other stuff is hard when you're just like, let's have an audition. Now there's 10 people talking about whether or not somebody is appropriate or enough of a name or sexy enough, or the things that happen when a group of people decide that a group of people need to comment on our making.
Let's talk a little bit about the other side of...
The other side of fame.
The other side of
The
fame.
drugs. The Ambien addiction.
VH1 returns.
The other side of gender.
I guess I feel like we're understanding the interior process of you making these shows. Can you talk a little bit about, I feel like Transparent and I Love Dick right now are tools in the world. And we've talked before about how, of course, this is a playground for you to do the things that you want to do, but it's also, you're also, from what I understand about you and where you're going, these shows are tools to create change in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear you talk about that and your perspective and how you manage the enormous amount of work that's coming at you. Questions.
Yeah.
There's a billion jobs you could be doing. How do you parse it out? And more specifically, because I think the big notions that you are carrying, you are having so much fun in the moment, but lots of people are having fun in the moment and they're doing shows with 6 people in the audience.
Yeah.
You are reaching people's hearts, but you're also creating social change with your shows. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, when we lived in South Commons, it was sort of like a moment when the civil rights movement was happening and the equal rights, amendment. My mom was a feminist, and the neighborhood was all about integration. And it was like, I remember we had a bicentennial parade in our neighborhood, and the Black Panthers were there. And we were just like all about revolution as children, and it wasn't a question. It just was. That was our neighborhood in Chicago. So that was like what I was born into. I didn't have to think like, oh, I want to be part of a social justice movement. Like that was just the kind of background of the hood. And so that's really what I always dreamed of. I dreamed when I was a little girl about being the first woman president. It was going to be Sarah Palin for a second. That was concerning. It still could be. But that was like my dream. And then, that same feeling of like, oh, I'm not smart enough to go to law school. I would never be able to pass the bar exam. I guess I can't be president. Like people who are politicians have to be lawyers, and I'm not smart enough. All that self-hatred, bad self-talk. But I did want to change the world. I really did believe that was just kind of, that's what my mom wanted to do. That's the antidepressant of the Soloway family. Of like, we're going to change the world. We're getting up every morning. We can make the world a better place. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And so TV became this other thing, which was super fun. But when Transparent revealed itself to be a holder for a movement, it's kind of makes it more fun.
Yeah.
Because now we get to go to work and pretend like we're not narcissists. Every other TV show they have to go, this is a really important TV show, and it's like, 2.5 Men. And they're like, it's important because we're making people laugh.
Yeah.
And laughter is great medicine. So they have to come up with reasons
Yes. Yes.
to act like TV matters, where we really do feel like we can go to work every day and be like, we're changing the world. The world changing is more important than the money. And the world changing is more important than the getting it right. And there's this pose that you'll see a lot on a TV set, which is this. Sometimes the director will have it. Sometimes the network, the studio, certain people's managers will stand at the monitor like this. Many of them sometimes, 5 to 10. And they'll be like, this ship better be good. And we can all tell here, because we're standing here at the monitor, if it's good.
Right.
We're going to look at each other. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Besides it being good, it better be fast. If these people aren't doing this quickly, we're going to call another guy in to come in here and stand here like this. This is what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it better be cheap. Because if this shit's going over budget, another guy's going to come down. And he's going to have folded arms, and then you know we're all going to be in trouble. This is the vibe on most television shows. So you're doing your art, but there are these people standing there, and they have their arms folded, and they're making sure that you're doing everything fast enough, and that it's good according to them, whatever that means. What an awful feeling.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, all we do is remove that, because we're like, we don't care if it's good. We're changing the world. This is the social justice movement. Good, fast, cheap, don't give a fuck. We're changing the world. So, ha ha ha, let's have fun. And it became this added gift of like lightness. It really is lightness, because we understand that if we are a product, we're in service of something bigger, and it's sort of connecting to the soul of something that matters, and we all get to be connected to that instead of coming to work and connecting to like the hierarchy of like the showrunner who's got a lot of power and everybody's kissing his ass and they're afraid that like they did something wrong or they're gonna get fired. We have like a don't throw anybody under the bus rule, and treat the background artists super like the best of the best people, like treat the background artists great. And we just reverse, at every turn I'm reversing the things that patriarchy put in place. That is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy. You start to see the pattern. You start to see the pattern, and you realize, like, oh, this was put in place for the patriarchy. Oh, TV shows have to take all night. This is so men can hang out with their friends and do cocaine after work and not have to go home. Like every single thing that you think that a TV show is, that you have to yell action. Worst idea ever. Every idea is bad. That you yell action at the moment before people are supposed to be in feeling and be feeling real.
Yeah.
You yell action? A prioritization of cranes and equipment and crossing the line. That's all bullshit. It's these things that everybody is standing around watching. And this is like stuff that Cassavetes said. I mean, this is all like straight from Cassavetes, where he says, if anybody's noticing that you crossed the line, you didn't do a very good job. And if people are noticing that the lamp is over here, like, you're not making your art. Like, the art is alive in the bodies and the stories of the people. And a lot of the stuff I do came from a piece I read by Cassavetes that he wrote in 1967. And it just talks about how the artist must be responsible for the art. And that's an artist's job, that nobody is going to say to you, here's how you can make the art more artsy. They're going to say to you, less money, less time, get a hotter actress. They're going to say everything other than art. Your job as the artist is to say art over and over and over again. And besides saying art over and over and over again, your job is also to convince people to pay for it. And so when somebody's like, my money fell apart, the investor pulled out, that's the artist's fault for not being able to speak the vision of their product in a beautiful enough way to create a political system behind them. Being a director is a politician. being a producer as a politician. You must be able to speak the vision of your project over and over and over again in a way that inspires people to work with you, to give you money. So that affected me a lot when I read that. That's part of the job, is leading in a way where the money follows, and it's your responsibility as the artist.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would say is that I've observed is that Jill guides all of us from that perspective regularly on set, whether it's at table reads or on set or when there's a particularly tough time. She owns that mantle of this. We are all in service of something bigger. We are here in gratitude. We are here and we're lucky to be here. But she really carries that mantle in every way, and I think that makes such a huge difference because it's hard work, and people forget sometimes what the unified vision is. And I think the truth is on most projects there isn't a unified vision. But to have a unified vision and then to have it stated regularly, I think for me at least is what keeps that thing going.
I think we brought cards. Did we bring Topple Principle cards? We have our Topple Principles with our 6 principles that we use that we're going to hand out to you guys. Christina has them. But we do abide by 6 principles as we create. And so you guys can take them with you. You can hand them out, yeah. I don't know, can we hand them out? Is it okay if I, yeah, they will come around.
All right, so I think I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to open to some questions that people have written from the audience. I guess the last question I have for you is, what's next? Where are you going? Not project, just what are you doing next?
Okay, not projects.
Not necessarily. It can be projects, but you've talked to me a lot about public speaking and carrying this mantle forward. I mean, I don't see you as being bound by TV, or we don't even make TV the way that we regard it. But I'm just kind of curious, like, where are you going? What are you doing in the world?
Yeah, so I think like in the past year I decided I wanted to get more comfortable with public speaking and to accept more public speaking gigs and do the thing where I really write something important to me, I memorize it, and then I try to like relax enough to say it conversationally on stage. And I did that a few times, and I love it. I just love it. It's so fun. It's sort of like half stand-up special, half TEDx, half like thing at the LAX Hilton for $150. It's so fun for me. And it allows me to believe that what I'm doing matters, and it allows me to feel like I'm part of a movement. And I do believe, that I'm really interested in movement building and movement creating right now. I think a lot about the resistance and how the Democratic Party isn't necessarily catalyzing resistance into an overthrow. I would like to see an overthrow. Full overthrow. I'm pushing for full overthrow in this country, in Israel, and everywhere that there is war. I'm imagining gender nonconforming, female queer leadership, people of color leadership on the entire planet. That's how I get up in the morning. I'm like, you know what, it may not happen in the next 5 years, but it could happen in the next 20. If Trump's president, anything's possible. It's anything. There's an accelerationism that's going on right now where things are happening so quickly. The Cubs won the World Series, and Cubbies. And things are happening that seem unbelievable. Somebody told me there is a trickster in the Matrix, and shit's crazy, as you guys can all feel. And I believe that there is something about the potential of social media and the way in which it's a sort of constantly iterating sphere-shaped language that holds space, just like we hold space at work, and holds space for the possibility of the organism to write itself. And that as we all begin to respond to this huge threat, we are writing ourselves by making a whole bunch of pink pussy hats and wearing them in a march, for example. It's like you look at that from the sky and you're like, that is an organism that's self-generated, a large pink thing that is a bunch of women who knitted a bunch of hats in 5 days and put them on their heads and got on airplanes and went to DC. And I believe in us. I believe in the natural nature of us as a people to overcome. And so I think a lot about movements and whether a movement could be created like as a product, the way TV shows and movies are, what it would take to create that as a product. And so I'm just talking to people about it all the time, you know, thought leaders and tech leaders and historians and brand experts and America Ferrara, because you always need her if you're going to start a movement.
Yep.
She's amazing. I think she could be the leader of it. I'm not sure. And yeah, that's my interest. Besides TV, is like, I may not be able to make it happen for my lifetime, but I can make it for my kids' lifetime, and that takes just the constant belief that anything's possible, and that the idea, I think, of resistance is a tough one because it's hard to keep people going when they're fighting against something instead of fighting for something. So I believe that it's as simple as the word love, no hashtag before it, just the word love, no website, there's no domain to buy. There is not a thing that needs to happen, but I sort of try to spread the gossip that there is a love movement starting. So I ask you guys to spread that gossip with me, just if you run into people, be like, oh, it's going to be okay. There is a love movement starting. So just kind of that would help if you spread that gossip with me. And I think it's going to be for women and people of color and queer people and gender nonconforming people and everybody who feels otherized, realizing what they have in common, and without erasure of our personal histories and identities, finding a way to come together in unity for, you know, equal access to power.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
That's happening.
Yeah, that's happening.
That's happening.
Yeah.
I'm going to read some questions from you guys for Jill Soloway. This is from Alana Del Rey.
Lana Del Rey is here. Oh, Alana Del Rey.
Any advice for actors on how to grow and get better, and any acting coach referrals? This is a SAG event.
SAG event. Well, Joan Shekel is a guru here in Los Angeles who taught me my directing technique, and she's really intense, and she's amazing, and she's brilliant, and she will crack you open and bring you right to your core of why you matter as an artist. Joan Shekel, Scheckel. She can be found online, and she's amazing. And then, I would just say do the thing that I mentioned. Get all your friends together, the people who crack you up, your favorite people, the people you're attracted to. Bring them to a room, bring a camera. If you can write a script beforehand, great. If not, you can improvise. Make something together, and then do the hard work of watching it afterwards and deciding what you made. You know, find an editor to edit it, and if you can find a director to direct it. If not, just kind of be self-led. And then look at what you made and figure out if it's good and be willing to be discerning about it instead of do what I did, which is like, it sucks, I'm done. I suck. You know, this idea was bad. Just be willing to take in the feedback. Allow yourself to be discerning about your work without the self-hatred. And allow people to give you work and not allow people to give you feedback and not let it be so overwhelming that you don't keep your own ambition going. But you still have to let it in. So that kind of iterative process of making work, showing work, being willing to hear people's perspective. You know, maybe not the night of the show, but the next day. You can say to somebody, how'd you like it? They're gonna be like, you were amazing. And then you go, can you really actually tell me what didn't work for you? And then you have to be willing to sit there and listen and say, thank you, sir, may I have another? You know, you have to be willing to ask the question and hear the answer, and then be patient with yourself, and you can wait a few weeks. You don't have to do anything right away, but then you can do the next phase, get the people together again, make the changes based on the feedback. Be willing to look at yourself without shame and not take rejection and pain as, you know, commands to stop.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Okay, thanks.
Next question from Batia. What advice for the actor or creator making their own content?
It's kind of the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Get the people, get the camera. You know what? Don't do it in your house. Just ask a friend if you can use their house. I went before Afternoon Delight happened, and when I was making my short, I was rehearsing scenes with actors that I would write, and I would shoot them, and it helped for me to say to a friend, can I shoot something in your house? It was just like a lot less embarrassing than having actors come over to your house. So you can be like, meet me at the location instead of come to my house. Just makes it easier. It's less embarrassing. The shame. Yeah. 101 ways to deal with shame. That is the name of the LAX Hilton. 101 ways to turn shame into money.
Package your shame into a hit TV
Yes.
show.
Your shame is your muse by Jill Soloway.
Okay, this is from Senta. The tone of your show is so natural. The tone of your shows is so natural. Do you do anything like improv to facilitate that, or is it just down to hiring actors with the right sensibility?
Yeah, it's all of it. Again, it's like I don't have them coming to the set thinking they better do this thing that I imagine. I have them coming to the set thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that Jay Duplass and Gabby Hoffman are here. And what's going to happen? You know, and so you hire funny people if it's a comedy. If it's a drama, you hire people who are great actors and who are really willing to allow their bodies to communicate drama. And then you give them the script and you watch what happens. And you don't make any decisions about what you're going to do until after you see it. And then you watch what happens, willingness to be open enough to discern what are your instincts, what are your impulses, and then shape it in real time using your ability to discern what's going on. You know, it is about holding space and seeing what happens and knowing that you're going to shape it. It's a ride, you know, it feels like a ride, so I can't wait to go on that ride whenever I'm doing it. So yeah, just make it fun. If it's not feeling fun, you have the wrong people. It should feel like the best part of your day and the best part of your week, and you know, it's joy, it's play, it's really play, like a child. The word is play, you know, theater is a play. And so you should be playing the whole time. If you're not playing, something's wrong, and fix that so that you can be playing.
The next question is from Jova, I think. This might be a little, well, we'll see.
Is it inappropriate?
It could be, I don't know. Did you consider any other actors from Mora before Jeffrey Tambor?
No. No. I was listening to Jeffrey Tambor on WTF, and Jeffrey Tambor is so much like my parent, and it was always Jeffrey Tambor. Yeah.
This is from India. Two-part question. We're going to do the second part. We answered
Okay.
the first part. Did your family have reservations about you writing about them? And if so, how did you overcome this?
Yes, they definitely did. Well, one of the things that I found when I was writing things, I would be like writing movies or TV shows, and I would always be using people in my real life. Like I would write a pilot, and it would be sort of stories that were sort of about real people. And then I would call up that person and be like, I just want to let you know there's a character based on you in my pilot. And I just have to make sure you know that, just in case. I turned it in today to Fox, and I'm waiting to hear, but I just wanted you to know. And then the pilot wouldn't happen, and you've totally just ruined your relationship with this person.
Yes.
Who thinks they've been objectified or whatever it is. And so I think I got in a place where I just sort of like was daring the world to make something happen. I would write about really personal things and dare the world to like say yes, and they never did and never did. And so when I wrote Transparent, I think at that time I was like, it's never going to happen. I mean, I knew, that was weird because I knew it had a path. I could see the path, but I just knew it had to happen. It just had to be. I just knew there was just like no thing other than it was. It had to be. It was time, you know. I knew how to write and I knew how to make a TV show, and I had just made Afternoon Delight, and Actually, Diablo Cody told me this about Juno. She's like, there's a thing that happens when you find the thing where you know that it's the thing. And you don't have to do anything except for just ride it. You know, if you're pushing a snowball uphill, it's probably not working. If you're fighting, you know, the thing that has the velocity is the thing. And that doesn't mean that you should stop, you know. But be willing to iterate until you find the thing. You know, don't get stuck in something that, if you look around and you're pushing a snowball up a hill and there's nobody helping you, just stop, you know, and let that snowball roll down the hill. And you have to be able to look around for the feeling of rising, you know, that, oh, this is working and people are coming and they want to come. And my parent, who is trans, did not want at first there to be a TV show. And I think I was like, don't worry, it's never going to happen. None of my shows ever get made. I've been writing pilots in this town for 10 years. Nobody gives a fuck about Jill Soloway, I promise you. And I think when I told my parent, I was like, it's an untitled show about a family. I wasn't like, it's called Transparent. I was like, I don't have the title yet. I haven't thought of it. And it's about the whole family, and there's somebody like you in it. And yeah, then they saw the pilot. I shot the pilot, and I brought it to Chicago, and I showed it to my mom and my mappa and my sister in my mom's apartment. We all watched it. It was just so funny to show it to them, you know. Yeah, and they were cool with it. Everybody loved it, you know. My mappa asked the craziest questions afterwards. Do you remember when in the pilot where Shelley talks about, like, we bought the house. Oh, I don't want, you know, talked about the divorce. And we bought the house in 1980 for $48,000 or for $84,000. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. So right after we finished watching the pilot, we turned it off. My mappa's first question is, what did they pay for the house in 1980? First question. Yeah. Not like sobbing, you really see me. Yeah. Not, you're an amazing artist. Jilly, you've finally done it. I was like, so what did a house cost in Pacific Palisades in 1984? Like, it's not real, Dad. It's a script. They didn't actually buy the house. Faith and I were crying. Like we were like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. My parents were just like curious about the details. Who are these phantom people who have a similar life to us? Because I don't think that's what I paid for this house. And the details had to be answered first. And then, yeah, I think that the world caught up with it enough that it was okay for my parent to be able to see. I mean, I remember at that very first table read, the notion of creating a show that would make the world safer for my parent was something I talked about. I think when I first had the phone call with my parent, I did feel a lot of shame. This was 5 years ago, and I kind of couldn't imagine my parent transitioning. I kind of didn't know what they were talking about because they had come from a cis, white, straight background. The short version is that people who came up through the gay world, you know, straight trans women or trans women who date men came up through the gay world and came up through the drag scene. But if you are a lesbian trans woman, you know, there's a lot of confusion because you're attracted to women. And so you don't actually identify as gay or queer, and you don't find that queer community. So all of those men identify as heterosexual cross-dressers. They all came to their transness through cross-dressing. And they have huge movements and clubs, and we depicted it season 1. There was that place called Camp Camellia. It's based on an organization called Tri-S. These are heterosexual, white, often Republican, conservative men who cross-dress part-time. And they have parties, and they have a scene, and they have clubs, and they're actually less and less so now that transness has been, but this is what my parent was coming out for me to understand, was that they were part of this community. And this, I didn't know I really didn't understand. I came from like a world of queer people where there were like very young trans people who were in their 20s, and so I knew young trans people, but I didn't know any trans people in their 70s. And I didn't really understand what that meant, you know? So I think I felt a great deal of shame at the time, thinking, well, how am I going to tell my friends this? How am I going to tell my in-laws this? Like, and writing the pilot was like creating a safe world for me to live in. And to share with people, like to literally change the temperature of the world around transness for my own benefit, for my parents' benefit, for the people around me to feel okay. Like that was the sort of understory of writing the pilot. It was like trying to heal the world so I could live in it. And so my parent could live in it. So at the time, they didn't think that it was going to be safe to have a TV show about their own transness on television because it was so dangerous, you know, to even just walk out your door as a trans woman. It still is incredibly dangerous. It's still as dangerous. It's impossible to walk down the street if you're noticeably trans without fear of being harassed or worse. So yeah, I was just trying to sort of do something about that feeling in the world. And I think the fact that Transparent actually did that, and now we live in this world, you know, like I remember getting a phone call from Caitlyn Jenner telling me, you know, thank you for your show. It allowed me to feel like somebody can come out and everybody doesn't die. You know, the stories beforehand had been trans women as criminals, trans women as prostitutes, trans women as victims, trans women coming out and ruining the family. But it just had this joyful show about a family with a trans woman at the center. She was like, it made me feel like somebody can come out and not die. And then I remember like 3 or 4 months later, I was at an airport traveling somewhere, and the security guard said, what are you doing? I'm traveling for work. What's your work? Transparent. It's a TV show. What's your TV show about? And I was like, it's like the Kardashians. Like, you know how the Kardashians' dad transitioned, and it's like this, like that. You know, like the culture had changed enough that I could so casually speak about my parents' transness because it was in the context of the most famous family on the planet, and it was like, it had spun the world around quickly enough that within a couple of years, it was just a very casual thing for me to be able to say to a total stranger. So I think that's part of my problem, where I actually believe, like, okay, I can help make a movement that's going to save the world. Like, I felt it, I thought it, I felt it, I wrote it, it happened, shit changed. I was like, fuck. That was not that hard, you know. That was great, you know. So what a moment that I just feel so lucky that at that moment that my parent came out, I knew exactly what to do. I had made Afternoon Delight. I pitched it to all the networks, and all the networks passed. For whatever reason, it wasn't meant to be. You know, that just goes to show you, you know, like walking out, you know, why isn't Showtime making a fucking offer? What the fuck? You know, just anger about these moments in my life where I was like, things aren't going my way. And it was like, there was only one network left, and it was the shopping website. That had no TV shows. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it with these people. I don't know what this is going to be like, but they're going to give me the money. And I had just come out of the indie film world, so I was like, it's better than going out and raising money for an indie film. They're going to distribute it. Let's see what happens. So the fact that the confluence of my parent coming out, my ability to, you know, as Joe always tells people, I told him, like, I can warranty the tone. I can guarantee the tone. Watch Afternoon Delight. If you like the tone of this movie, the tone of the TV show will be the same. So I had figured my shit out. I was like, this is my cinematographer. This is my makeup artist. This is my production designer. It's all the same people. Like Marie was doing costumes, and Emma was doing makeup, and Jimmy was shooting, and it's all the same family that I had already found. And yeah, it's what was the question? It's something. Yeah. Are we done?
We're out of time,
Okay.
but I want to, just one quick final question I want to ask. How does your parent feel about their story being at the forefront of the civil rights movement?
I think they love it. I mean, the whole family loves it. You know, now we're all kind of into it. My sister did a musical in New York a couple nights ago called Should Transparent Be a Musical, where she played all of the songs, including the soon-to-be hit Your Boundary Is My Trigger. And yeah, my mom loves it, my mappa loves it. You know, everybody's just like a little mini celebrity in their own world now. My mom does speaking engagements, and you know, it's great. It's a beautiful thing. We all get to live in the world that this show created. So, you know.
You did it.
It happened.
You did
it. Thank you.
Jill Soloway, everybody.